reading Matthew 28:19 through the 20th. Therefore, go and make disciples of all nations, baptizing them in the name of the Father and of the Son and of the Holy Spirit, and teaching them to obey everything I have commanded you. And surely I am with you always to the very end of age. May the Lord add a blessing to the reading of his word for the good and edification of our soul.
Well, it's a pleasure to be able to ask Jared and Chelsea to come up and talk about their mission. Mission is at the heart of what the church is all about. It should be anyway. If the church isn't on mission, if individual Christians aren't on mission, then we've really missed the whole point of what it means to be a Christian. God is calling us as an institution, a church, calling us as individuals to be on mission with Him, wherever that might be, whether it's international ministries in Egypt or it's in Peoria at Bradley University. Jared and Chelsea are working with CRU, Campus Crusade for Christ. And I have to just be honest with you, I don't believe Claudette and I would be here today without the influence of Campus Crusade for Christ in our lives when we were at the University of Texas at El Paso. We didn't have an official Campus Crusade for Christ presence, but there were people who worked with them who were essential in leading us to Christ. Claudette, Rhonda led Claudette to Christ by doing a Bible study where the famous James 2:19 came up. Even the demons believe and they shudder. And that led Claudette to think, gee, what's the difference between me and a demon? And that led her down a road of faith that changed her life. For me, it was a young lady I was dating at the time who we went into a study room in the dorm, and she opened up the 4 spiritual laws. And I saw the gospel visually, even though Claudette and I both grew up in church. I saw the gospel visually in such a way that while I didn't pray at that time, it started me on this trajectory that led me to Christ about 12 months later. And I will say this about her. We stopped dating because she was a Christian and she wasn't going to do missionary dating on me. She was a friend of mine, but that dating relationship stopped because she had become a Christian. In her early Christian walk, she starts evangelizing, sharing the 4 spiritual laws with all these people. I'm one of them. It was an amazing thing. So it is really pleasurable to be able to finally get this couple up here to talk about it. We'd been talking about this a while back and it just fell through the cracks, but here they are. So let's welcome Jared and Chelsea.
Well, thanks, Tim, for inviting us. And we really want to thank all of you for inviting us in here to share about the ministry that we're doing at Bradley University.
So like Tim said, we're Jared and Chelsea Mullins. I grew up in Dubuque and then went to Bradley, and that's how I kind of got involved in CRU. I graduated in 2016. Jared this year is finishing his degree through Moody Online. And Jared went to Bradley also for a little time, and we met through Bible study and actually got asked to lead a Bible study together, and that's kind of how we started dating and got together. And we just both really felt called to go back to Bradley with campus ministry to be able to share our vision of the gospel with all these college students. So to give you a little bit of perspective, CRU Peoria has about 200 students involved. That's through a lot of different things. We have Bible studies that meet both on campus and in the communities, as well as we have large group meetings and things we'll talk about a little bit later. But yeah, we have about 200 students that are involved in our ministry.
Yeah, thanks. Can we go to the next slide? So Chelsea and I are actually on staff with Peoria Area Campus Ministries, which is a partnership between Bethany Baptist Church, and that's our home church in Peoria, and CRU. So if you don't know what CRU is, Tim did a good job of kind of explaining what they are. So they used to be called Campus Crusade for Christ. And so CRU actually has a presence all around the world. They are in 190 different countries. They're actually, the statistic is that CRU is in more countries than McDonald's is. So just to give you context of how far-reaching CRU actually is. And they also have different branches of ministry that you may have heard of. Family Life Ministry, Josh McDowell Ministries is actually a branch of CRU. Athletes in Action. So CRU is really widespread and far-reaching. And so it was about 15 years ago that our church, Bethany Baptist Church, decided that in addition to their college ministry that was going on in church, that they actually wanted to be sending people out to meet college students where they're at on campus. And so when they decided that that's what they wanted, they thought it would be wise to partner with CRU because they had like 70 years of experience reaching millions of college students all around the world. And so that's kind of how this ministry got started. And so I think, like Chelsea said, we are going to be on staff for the next 3 years. We've been around for 2 years on staff, and then we were a part of it as students for a while before. And so actually our staff team, there's 12 of us, and it's made up of a mix of staff from the church, so that would be like Chelsea and I, and of actual CRU staff members. And so what actually we are on campus is we're actually considered missionaries. And so when you think of missionaries, somebody going to a college campus probably isn't necessarily what you think of. You think of maybe somebody who's maybe in Africa or India or China, probably living in a poor area, ministering to a foreign context. And that's true. Those are missionaries, but we actually are also considered missionaries. So when you think about like why did Chelsea and I decide that this was worth giving our lives to, that this is worth giving the best hours of our day to work 40 and 50 hours a week actually being on college campuses and sharing the gospel with college students. And to kind of illustrate that, I'd like to tell you a story about a student that I met a few years ago named Logan. If you can go to the next slide. So Logan is going to be on the far right in this picture. So this is a picture of us in March when Chelsea and I actually led a mission trip to Berlin, Germany. So our campus has a partnership with the campuses in Berlin, Germany, and we actually got to take some students over there and share the gospel in a different cultural context in Germany, which was really cool. But I met Logan just a couple of years ago, and so to give you some background, when Logan came to college, he kind of came from a background where his family really didn't let him make any choices. And so when he got to college, he experienced this freedom that he had never known or experienced before, and really just didn't know how to wield that freedom. And so when he got to college, he made some friends, and he was like, well, what are we going to do? I don't know what to do here at college. And his friends was like, oh, well, at college, you go drink and you party. That's just what you do. And so that's kind of how Logan got introduced to that scene of just partying and drinking as a lifestyle. And so he did have fun that semester experiencing, parties and just drinking all the time. But he went home for Christmas break that first semester that he was at college. And he was at work one day, and then he got a call from his parents, and they were like, Logan, we need you to come home right now. This is an emergency. Get off work. Just do whatever you need to do and get home. And so he was pretty shaken, and then he came home to actually find out that his younger brother had attempted suicide. And fortunately, his brother wasn't successful, and they've gotten some things corrected, and he's gotten the help that he needs. But, I mean, the whole experience just left Logan just totally shocked and broken and confused and really feeling kind of hurt and betrayed. And it was just a few days after that he ends up back at Bradley, and he's not in a group of people that are going to help him process this in a healthy way. So he goes and he tells his friends, and they were like, man, like that sounds terrible. We just need to get you drunk and help you forget about this. And that was what he chose to do, and that was what his friends told him to do. And so he ended up just really giving himself over to alcoholism that year. And so pretty much he had said anytime that he wasn't in class or asleep, he was just totally drunk and drinking until he passed out. And he knew it was hurting him. He knew it was hurting him because, as I talked to him about it, the way that he explained it, he never got to the point where he actually became suicidal himself, but he just didn't care whether he lived or died anymore. So he told me he would have been just perfectly happy if he had gotten drunk, passed out, and just never woke up again. And that was sad for me to hear from such a young person who has really everything in front of him and so much to look forward to in his life. But unfortunately, Logan's experience is not unique in a college context. And while for Logan, it was alcohol and parties, there's so many other things that are going on in college that can kind of take you away and lead you astray. And there just aren't many voices on college campuses that are telling you where to find real hope. They're telling you where you can find real satisfaction. And so, like I said, for Logan, it was alcohol, but it could be drugs. It could even be good things. You know, it could be pursuing grades and really getting consumed by that, and getting grades so you can have that perfect job that actually at the end of your life ends up as kind of a disappointment. That didn't actually fulfill you in the way that you thought it would. And so, I mean, really the reason that Chelsea and I want to be on college campuses is because it's such a formative time for young people. We often say that the 4 years that a person spends in college defines their next 40. And that's not just in terms of a career, but in terms of what they actually value and what's going to be important to them for the rest of their lives. So whether that is, just partying or making money or achieving status or power or your faith. And so being on college campus is so important because that is really where most people make the decision that they're going to, of what's going to be important to them for the rest of their lives. And as you think about just our country, when you think about the most influential demographic, it's college students. College students are going to shape our future. College students are going to make the laws. They're going to decide, what direction our country is going to take. And so we have to be there. We have to be sharing the truth with these college students if they're the ones that are kind of going to be taking care of our future. And so that's really one big reason why we want to be there, is for students like Logan and others. We want to reach a whole range of students, from the person who grew up in the church to somebody who's just adamantly opposed to any kind of religion. We want to be there to talk to all of them and offer hope to all of them. And so for Logan, fortunately, his story didn't end there. He ended up coming back to campus the next year and became friends with one of the students that was involved in our ministry, ended up getting invited to a small group, and that was where I met him. And then so he and I actually ended up meeting one-on-one, and it was just October of this last year that he sat down, and I didn't have any context for what was going on in his life. I didn't know. He was good at hiding it, but then all of a sudden, just one afternoon when we were meeting, he just spilled everything. His background, where he felt controlled, his alcoholism, his brother's attempted suicide, and he was just broken, and he knew it. And he knew he was hurting himself by his alcoholism. And so we talked about that for a long time, what it actually meant to have hope and what the healthy ways were to deal with this stuff. And by the end of that conversation, he had become a Christian. And it was really amazing to see because it was just like a flip of the switch. I've never been so up close to somebody whose life's been so transformed. It was that day he decided alcohol just can't be a part of my life anymore. And he just stopped drinking. He didn't have another drink after that. And he's since become one of the most passionate and energetic students in our ministry. And if you actually see, Logan's on the right, if you see the guy next to him, Logan actually had a huge hand in leading him to Christ. So his name is Marshall. He came as a freshman. Logan knew he wasn't a Christian, and Marshall actually irritated Logan a lot. But he knew that Logan knew that Marshall needed Christ, and he didn't let that their personalities didn't mesh well together stop him from just pouring into this guy and loving him to the point where he actually did become a Christian, and they're really close friends now. So it's just cool to see the way that the gospel can interact. And so this is what we want to see, we want to see a guy who was an alcoholic who meets Jesus and then just becomes totally passionate about sharing the gospel with others. And that really is why we want to be on campus, because we want to see that happening. And so Chelsea's actually going to take some time now and kind of tell you about the strategy and what kind of our day-to-day looks like on campus.
Yeah, so like Jared mentioned, our vision is that we want to see every college student in Peoria have a chance to say yes to following Christ. And the way we kind of do that when we approach campus is we have a thing called Win, Build, Send. That's the strategy that really drives us. That's what determines our schedule when we make our weekly schedule and how we approach life on campus. And so as you can see, the different stages are win. We want to win students to Christ. We want to build them up in their faith and then send them out into the world to make other disciples. And so to kind of break that down, under WIN, we have a few different things we do. We do outreaches. So usually once a semester, we'll do a campus-wide outreach where we try to initiate conversations with students, get them talking about spiritual things on campus. We also do initiative evangelism, kind of, actually we use the 4 spiritual laws still, like Tim was talking about. And we just walk up to students and share our faith with them and see if they want to talk and kind of, what they're struggling with. Under Build, we have a lot of things. This is where a lot of our time goes, is building up students. Once we win them to Christ, we don't want to just leave them there. We want to build them up and make their faith real in their life. So we have small groups that meet. That looks a lot of different ways. We have ones in the community, ones on campus, anywhere from only freshmen, only girls, student leaders, all the different ranges. We have conferences and retreats we send students on, which for Jared and I, those were really impactful for our lives and are for a lot of students. It's a time where they get to get away from campus and be challenged in their faith and drive deeper. We have discipleship one-on-one meetings, like Jared mentioned. He met up with Logan once a week, and those are times that we really personalize what we talk to them about and really dig out root issues in their life and what they really need to hear. And most importantly, under Build, we want students to be built up to go out and share their faith with their peers. CRU's not going to be there when they graduate. They're not going to have a staff person walk them across campus to share with their friends. And so we teach them how to share their faith with coworkers, with their peers, with their classmates. And lastly, Send. So once we win students to Christ, we build them up in their faith. We want them to be sent out into the world to make other disciples. Whatever students do after college, we want them to be true disciples of Christ. Most students will use their degrees to go out and do things in the workplace, but that doesn't mean that they don't have an opportunity to share their faith. And so we want them to be able to share their faith when they go out into campus. And to illustrate the Win, Build, Send, I'd love to share a story with you about one of my friends, Kylie, if you go to the next slide. She is the girl, the blonde in the middle. She actually was a freshman my senior year when I was at Bradley. She lived on my floor, and I got to know her actually through her roommate. Her roommate was part of CRU, and Kylie started coming because she didn't really have a lot of friends, and she just wanted a community of friends to, hang out with and do things with. And so Kylie started coming to CRU, and after a couple meetings that she came to, I started asking her questions, and she started asking me questions about what faith is. She wasn't a Christian. She told me that she didn't believe in Christianity. She didn't believe that there was a God. She thought all Christians were hypocrites. A lot of things that, she just knew of Christians that weren't true followers, and so she was seeing these lies. And so I started meeting up with Kylie one-on-one and just talking to her slowly about things she was struggling with and being able to really share truth with her. And after about a semester, she accepted Christ after believing the Bible. Mostly we just read the Bible, and she was starting to believe the truths that the Bible said instead of these things she was being told. And that next year, Kylie really took off in her faith. We continued to meet one-on-one, really diving deep into the Bible. She started coming to our small groups more often, and she actually also came on the Berlin trip with us. And that was a time for her where she really saw that she got an opportunity to share her faith with people that had never heard of Christ before. I remember the first afternoon after she got done sharing, she told me she was really scared to go out and share her faith, but afterwards she said that she was so excited that she actually got to share hope with these students that had never heard it before. This past year, Kylie started leading a small group Bible study of only freshman girls, which is really fun because that's where I got to really pour into her. So now she's pouring into these freshman women, and she's talked about maybe doing things after graduation, like interning with CRU or going overseas with missions. And she's also a journalism major, so she's really excited about doing journalism in the real world. And she said that no matter what she does, she's really excited to be able to share her faith with others. And so Kylie's just a really good illustration that we see in a lot of our students of walking through the Win, Build, Send, strategy that we have.
Yeah, thanks, Chelsea. Yeah, so when you think about a staff team of 12 people and there's 26,000 college students in the Peoria area, this Win, Build, Send could fill up an entire week's worth of hours. We could do 100 or 150 hours, but we usually end up capping it at about 50 hours a week is what we spend on campus ministering to students. And so as Chelsea and I, before we got married, we're talking about what we wanted to value in our marriage and what we wanted to drive our lives. It just kept coming back to this verse that I'm going to read again, and that is Matthew 28:19 and 20. It says, "And Jesus came and said to them, all authority in heaven and on earth has been given to me. Go therefore and make disciples of all nations, baptizing them in the name of the Father and of the Son and of the Holy Spirit, teaching them to observe all that I have commanded you. And behold, I am with you always, to the end of the age." These are our standing orders from Jesus. This is the last thing that he told us. This is the last thing that he commanded of us before he went up into heaven. And for Chelsea and I, we just read it. Make disciples, baptize them in the name of the Father, teach them all that I have commanded you. This is what we wanted. This is what we want to see. And Jesus tells us to go to the ends of the earth. And so as Chelsea and I had these discussions, we decided we want to be a part of actually seeing the Great Commission fulfilled. You know, we talk about these verses a lot as, you know, what we're supposed to be doing. But we don't often talk about that there's an end to this. There's a fulfillment of the Great Commission. That is when the gospel reaches the end of the earth. And that is what Chelsea and I want to see happen. We've never been closer in the history of the world to fulfilling this Great Commission. And it's very much possible to fulfill it within our lifetime, within our generation. And that's what Chelsea and I really want to give our lives to, is actually seeing the Great Commission fulfilled. And as we thought about, well, what does that look like for our lives? For where we're at, we decided that college ministry was the thing. Because you can share the gospel on a college campus and it could end up anywhere in the world. So I'll just use one more story to illustrate that. Chelsea and I met a student named Monish, and he's from India, and he actually came to Bradley to get a master's degree in engineering. And so we met Monish. He's a really fun guy. Like I said, he's from India. And as he got involved with us and in our ministry, he kind of started to realize that what he had thought about Christianity also wasn't true. And he actually ended up accepting Christ. And he has just graduated this last year, and he's going to be working in the States for a few years. And he wants to volunteer with us to learn how he can actually go back to India and share his faith with his family and with the people that live in India in his community, which is just so exciting. And it's like I said, you share the gospel on a college campus, you don't know where it's going to end up. But Chelsea and I decided that's what we want. You know, we want an opportunity here at home in the States where we can go and we can share the gospel, and it could end up anywhere. And so college is really a hotbed for that. Like I said, you share it there, and it could end up anywhere. But the same is true of really anything. Our God is bigger than where we share the gospel, right? Our God is bigger than just college campuses. So we actually want to invite you to join us in seeing the Great Commission fulfilled, because you can share the gospel anywhere, in your workplace, in your social circles, anywhere, and that could end up anywhere. You know, you just don't know. And so as you think about this, the Great Commission is the most important command that Jesus left us with. You know, last words matter, right? This is the last thing that Jesus told us before he left, was go and make disciples and take the gospel to the ends of the earth. And that's what we want to do, and that's what we want to invite you to do as you think about your daily life. You know, where are the areas that I can share the gospel? Who do I know that could be influential, or even not? You know, just anybody that you can think of, your neighbors, friends, coworkers, family. Just share the gospel with them so that we can see the Great Commission fulfilled and we can actually see Jesus return, because that's what we're working for, because Jesus is the prize of our faith. And the faster we get this Great Commission fulfilled, the faster we get the prize of our faith. And that is really what drives Chelsea and I to be on college campuses and to be doing what we're doing and sharing the gospel. So again, we just wanted to thank you guys for allowing us to come in here and share about what we're doing. And just, I hope that it's inspired you to think about how you can also participate in seeing the Great Commission fulfilled.